Hello, everybody. I'll do like a live update. I posted the teaching post today, and so you probably won't see another one until, takes about 5 days when I add all notes and all. But there's always issues I can speak on. But there was an article in the Kohler Times, the local newspaper. I read it online from the local, maybe KRS or whatever, or KZTV, one of the local media outlets. And it was interesting. And it talked about dealing with the homeless. How we're going to deal with the homeless problem in society and so forth. And I read it. I'm sure they meant well. It basically said the Salvation Army took a particular initiative. One of my friends, who I have not seen now in about a week, James, but he was going down there, and I think even one of the pastors at the Salvation Army, he was giving him good, trying to help him get on his feet again. But the article said they're going to coordinate, they're going to try and do like a coordination amongst the various entities that try to help with substance abuse. Talked about people that they can recommend to Charlie's Place, which is a very great recovery center here in Corpus Christi. I've taken many of my friends there. As I read the article, it meant well. It was all of those things, those good agencies have been around for a while. And the problem, it's really not going to put a dent in the homeless problem in Corpus Christi. But what I was thinking as I read it is our mindsets. How do we deal with, quote, the homeless problem? Could part of the homeless problem be the problem of those that are in homes who have a particular view and vision of their city, wherever it is, and that maybe have to be challenged, that Jesus said, the poor you will always have with you. And whenever you want, you can do them well. We have a lot of things in society that we have visions for cities, for economies, for nations. And we often say, this is the picture perfect vision of our city or our church or whatever it is. But maybe the picture perfect vision has to be challenged. Maybe there's another reason why we always will have the poor with us. Maybe there's another reason why we will always have homeless. Maybe it's because it's challenging the mindsets of those who just don't like the way it looks, or those who feel, I pay a lot of taxes on this house, and maybe people feel robbed because they worked hard to get where they're at. And then they might see people that are existing. Some of them are happy, some of them are surviving, and they're saying, but wait a minute, that's just not fair. How we treat, and I find it interesting because a lot of the media, both local and national, they advocate for maybe on the more liberal side, though I advocate as well for the immigrant. And there's a lot of paper and ink and online arguments. We hate a particular viewpoint that might be anti-immigrant, and we will fight for the immigrant. And many of those same people don't realize that their personal view towards the immigrant in their midst, the homeless, those that are the stranger, strange to their own perceptions of what is the norm, they have a negative view towards them. And I just know that I see these mindsets, that people, the things that we fight about in politics, fight about in many of the news things, people form a moral compass. And some of the people that form these ideas honestly and truly believe there are certain right things that we should do as a society, and there are certain wrong things. And that's what fuels these debates. Whether it's the president or whoever, well, he got away with something bad, but oh, yeah, but our side or whatever. That's what fuels these debates. And in these debates, people that are so passionate are actually arguing for an ethical norm, meaning the way we should do a certain thing, this is the right way. And the way the other side views it is the wrong way, regardless of what you're talking about. And so what you're saying is you're doing something wrong. You're violating a norm of society that we feel is a just law. Believe me, people are making that argument, not realizing they're making it. In part, some who hold that view will tell you, we think that if we were just inclusive, meaning we respected other people's lifestyles, viewpoints, all the other things, and that we formed a society based on that, then we would have a good society. And I'm not totally... But then you would say, but what about this one? Many people who argue and say, if we could just be pluralistic, we could just accept all viewpoints, then it would be good. Then it would be fine. But when you argue, but wait a minute, this person crossed a line in a particular van in Canada, running people over, or this person, obviously we're mad because they crossed a line. They crossed some ethical standard that we're trying to agree on as a society. But without any foundation, that standard could change over time, which has indeed changed over time. Things that people were passionately against, whether politics or whatever, then later they said, well, the norms have changed. That's where you need a foundation that's beyond. Oftentimes people will reject, they'll say, we're inclusive. We want everybody at this table, this community. But the person that holds a view that there is a particular, whether he has a Christian viewpoint, say, well, but you believe there's only one way to God. So we want to exclude your view from our pluralistic society. Then you just violated that norm. Do you understand? You basically said, we want everybody's view to be respected, except for what we perceive as the exclusive view. If you come to the table and you have a Judeo-Christian ethic, we don't want you at the table. Well, you just did the same thing that you're advocating is a wrong thing, okay? Some of you will understand this. I know you guys are smart. And so as I was thinking of it, after I finished the videos yesterday with my homeless friends, I had a very good long talk with little Charlie, and I even taught him a few things. I guess I'll mention it because I was thinking of teaching on it. But I was reading in Isaiah the other day, the earlier chapters, and there's a particular king by the name of Hezekiah. And Hezekiah, there's this other king that comes up and sends messengers. These messengers make a threat. And these words, this threat goes forth. And it says, you think God's going to deliver you? We're coming in, we're going to wipe you guys out. And it says, those words, that threat came. And then he took those words and spread them before the Lord and said, these are not your words, God. You have a covenant with us, but these are the words of the enemy. You look at that. And I told Charlie, I said, in recovery, addictions and all these things, there'll be times where you will hear words. you'll hear the voice of the enemy. Go do this, go do that. I said, and when they come, you can take those words and say, you know what? These are not your words, God. These are not even coming from me. This is, I spread it to you. And he liked that. And he grasped that concept. And then he brought up one of the parables of Jesus. We call it the tares and the wheat. And he explained it well. And it's a parable where Jesus says, the people, a man planted some good wheat. And as the crop started coming up, there was what we call tares. It's actually referred to as bastard wheat in the original, meaning it looks real, but then you realize, oh no, it's fake. And then Charlie explained it, and Jesus continues in that parable, and he says, and then some said to the master, should we go and pull out all that bad wheat right now? And he said no, because if you start pulling it out now, the bad stuff, you're going to also harm the good stuff. Let both grow together until the harvest. And then in the harvest, the angels are going to come forth in Sarah. And I told Charlie, I said, because we're having a good discussion about a lot of things. I said, now, I've heard people use an application to that parable of the tares and the wheat. I said, and it isn't the actual historical meaning of that parable, which is self-explanatory if you read it. I said, but I've heard people share it in a way that said, there are things in us, and there are times where we think, oh, and a lot of the guys struggle with the drug meth. That's a big thing here where I live. I said, and then you might think, oh, I dealt with it. A lot of my friends struggle with alcoholism, and now I'm still sober 5.5 years. And some of the friends you've seen recently, they thought they had that thing beat for a while. Then they found themselves back. And I told Charlie, I said, and when you have those thoughts again, those cycles, that addiction, some say it's like the tares that are coming up, the bad stuff again. I said, and then people think, oh, why am I still now going to struggle with that meth or whatever it is? I said, and some said that God permits both to grow together, and then he's going to take it out again. It's like a process of deliverance, process of recovery, a process of redemption. And Charlie also liked that. And I just mentioned it because then we got into some deep theological discussion. And I couldn't do it all. But as I sat there and he grasped a lot of what I was saying, I thought, I know there's a lot of ministers, pastors and preachers, who wouldn't even be able to grasp some of the things that we were talking about. And then I thought, how offended do we get when we might see some homeless person, some person, you see, that we deemed bastard weed, or we deemed the bad stuff. And we as a society, we want to go in and let's pull that out. Let's form our homeless city where there's no homelessness. You're not going to get that. It's your mindset that needs to be challenged. And many of you that get offended at those things, that those are the reason those things happen, to challenge us. I would submit to you that the homeless, I got all types of stuff that my homeless friends gave me over the years. I wear one cross that my friend Andy gave me. That's a prayer cross. I think we do not challenge our own mindsets at times. And I think that's the problem. And when Jesus was preaching, and they said, I'm going to upload this now. I'm not going to make a teacher video because I'd have to add too much. But when he was teaching and going into we covered Passion Week, and the children began saying, Hosanna in the highest. And man, that was just offensive to some. They said, tell them to be quiet. Can't you hear what they're saying? And if I told them to be quiet, the rocks would shout out, Jesus said. Their solution to the things that they thought were not right is, let's silence them, let's remove them, let's get them out of this. Let's go out and do this harvest now and get what, let's get all the quote bad weed out now. No, let both grow together until the harvest. And my application is, the harvest in this particular way I'm talking about it, not in the biblical context, is that the harvest could be finally, there's a change of mindset. That the poor we're going to always have with us. And if you don't like it and you want to eliminate it, which you will not do, you will not eliminate homelessness in the city, then you're going to learn how to love your neighbor. And who is my neighbor? They asked him, Jesus again in one of the parables. Because the man had all these things going for him. And he said, I'll tell you who the neighbor is. And there was a man that went down, you would call it the road to Jericho. And he was beaten by thieves. They took him. And then there's a priest that passed, by the way. And he avoided that man. Because he was laying like, ooh, that's a sight I don't want to see. And then the law, the Levite, the religion. But then there was this man, a Samaritan. The Samaritans were from Samaria, which were the people throughout the whole history of the Old Testament. They were considered, these Samaritans are the unclean ones. They're the bad guys. But the Samaritan, Jesus in this parable says, Samaritan passed by. And he saw that man that was laying on the side of the road to Jericho. And he took him. And he took care of him. And then he brought him someplace. And he gave extra money. He said, take care of him. And if there's even more of a charge when I get back, I'll repay you. And Jesus told that story to the man who wanted to know who his neighbor was. And then he said, now you go and do likewise. To love your neighbor isn't only just the people that are on the nice society block you might live on. It's that person. It's that one. So I'll just do this as a little update. I'll upload it now, and we'll share a few more. Okay? Just felt it was interesting to see some of these experiences. Okay, God bless everybody.